It has been over a month now and still no suspect, no person of interest named in the Idaho college murders. In fact, surprisingly, the police have not even issued a profile of the killer to the community. Well, today we're going to discuss the possible profile of the killer of the Moscow Four. The Moscow Four being the students of Ethan, Xana, Kaylee, and Madison. This and more on this episode of Charlie Crimebuster, the fastest minutes in podcasting.
And opinions expressed in this podcast are those solely of individuals interviewed and participating in this show and do not represent those of Peacemaker Network and Charlie Crimebuster. All individuals described or mentioned in the podcast should be considered innocent until found guilty in a court of law. This podcast contains subject matter such as violence and graphic descriptions which may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode regarding the Idaho college murders. The murders of four precious college students that were killed sleeping in their beds November the 13th this year. Now, we're going to get you caught up on the case, and we're going to issue a profile based on some of the greatest criminalists in the nation who have weighed in on the case. But first, let me welcome new people to the podcast. You see, every week, new people join a host of others in downloading our podcasts. We appreciate each of you, and you are now a part of our podcast family. Thank you from the bottom of our heart. Hey, please give us a review on your favorite podcast platform, and please subscribe if you've not already done so. Also, we welcome you to reach out with a shout-out. That's right, reach out with a shout-out. You can do that by emailing me personally, charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Hey, please feel free to email me with questions, suggestions, opinions, even if they differ from ours. Also, if you just want to shout out and say hi, email me, charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. And for those of you who would like to support the podcast, we appreciate that. Please go to peacemakernetwork.com. Hit the donate button. Any amount would be appreciated. We go a long way in helping us help others. You can become a badge, BADGE supporter for as little as $3 a month. And your support, well, it does go to help assist our nation's heroes, law enforcement, first responders, and our military. Again, go to peacemakernetwork.com and you read all about that there. You can also reach that network through charliecrimebuster.com. And as always, we make all those links available in our show notes. All right, let's get down to business. The police in Idaho have not released a profile of the possible suspect of these murders, I should say, even though it's been over 1 month. Now, we're going to talk about that today, along with giving you an actual possible profile of the Moscow Four murderer. But first, let's get you caught up on any updates in the case. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, you now know that the police are looking for a white Hyundai sedan seen in the area around the time of these murders. Now, this is a clue that the police have been investigating. And it could be the same vehicle caught on camera from an Exxon Mobil station's camera around 3:45 a.m. the morning that the four University of Idaho students were murdered. That gas station, by the way, is just about a mile away from their home. The police are calling for help from the community in locating this vehicle. Now, I think this is a very big deal about the case. And let's take a moment to talk about it. I think it's a big deal in a number of ways. This is the first thing that the police have really issued as a clue in the media. Now, they are saying, they're saying they just want to talk to the occupant or occupants to see if maybe they had seen something that might help them in the investigation. But you and I both believe there's some other things about this white car they are not telling us. There's even another camera that has been taken from the area by police, one, in fact, right next to the murder house. And it is possible that camera may have also picked up something about that white car. It is also possible that person or various people have told them about the vehicle in the area. It could have even been seen connected to one or more of the victims prior to the murder. Now, I say all that is possible because we really don't know. Police are not saying why this vehicle was so vital to their investigation. But it was speeding in the immediate area at the time of the murders. That's according to the police timeline. They are trying to track this car. When that's evident from the video surveillance they're retrieving. They are now even getting footage from nearby towns and possible routes that this vehicle could have taken. Now, my friend, while I've been giving much support to the Moscow Police Department and the way they've handled this investigation thus far, I gotta admit it does cause me to wonder why the police did not get the aforementioned video from the service station at the very beginning of the investigation. You see, there is really only one way out and one way in to this murder house. That's according to seasoned, qualified investigators that have been at and near the crime scene. It was very likely that this person would have passed by that service station coming and going into the area. I would have thought by the time the sighting was revealed that investigators would have already had in possession all camera footage within the immediate area. In my opinion, they should have all video covering at least the day before, day of, and after of much of the time of this crime. At least that much, don't you think? Yet it took a store clerk who took their downtime to go over the footage to alert the police to this, some 3 weeks or more after these murders. You see, I have to ask myself, how could that have happened in such a high-profile case? We were told that more than 45 investigators from the FBI, state police, and Moscow police are involved in the murder case. We know that the governor has committed $1 million to help with the investigation. Now, I do know that they have combed through thousands of tips, taken over 4,000 photos, done 3D recordings, processed the complex, bloody scene there at that place, retrieved over 113 pieces of physical evidence, received more than 260 digital submissions, and by now, by far, they've probably interviewed 200 or more people. Now, all that is very impressive. But with 45 investigators in one case, why was this vital footage not retrieved within 24 hours of the investigation? You see, at least one person of those 45 could have been responsible for getting every piece of video available within the area, businesses, houses, and even vehicle dash cameras. Well, they all have a trove of treasure of any investigation. And yet this clue is one so important that they're going public with it. Not going public with much, as you know. So you would think it would have been picked up right away. Now, I do know they are doing some real cutting-edge scientific processing of the scene, and this I applaud. However, my friend, you cannot ignore just some good old plain old gum-shooting detective work. Get out of your car. Walk into every establishment in the house that you could possibly find that would pick up the unknown suspect or suspects on camera. This is only 1 mile away, on the main road coming into the murder scene. It should not have been overlooked. You know, another thing that stands out to me is that no one yet has come forward and made themselves available to the police that they were driving that vehicle. We know that it's gone viral in the media, and yet no one has come forward. My friend, that says volumes about the connection of that vehicle to this murder, or these murders. You see, if this information had been released earlier, well, maybe somebody would have remembered the vehicle while it was fresh on their minds. Yes, I know how easy it is to Monday quarterback. We call it Monday morning quarterbacking, you know. You wait till the next day after the game, and then you talk about what should have been done. And I do know how easy it is to Monday morning quarterback such an investigation. Now, I have and will be supportive of those leading this investigation. However, this This, that they did not have that video, is most concerning to me. While there are so many things that the investigators are doing right about this case, the one thing of engaging the public, that's what I feel is a real weakness in this case. Now, DNA and scientific investigative tools, well, that's going to be vital in prosecuting this case. It can also be helpful in finding the suspect or suspects. However, we cannot let these breakthroughs in cutting-edge investigative tools take away what is called just good old-fashioned police work. It is usually through interviews and working with informants that the best of cases are solved. DNA will do us no good if we cannot catch the person whose DNA profile may be left behind. You see, I do believe that instead of alienating the public, like the threats that investigators recently made regarding prosecuting people who've talked too freely online about the case, they would do much better to engage, not alienate, but engage with the public. Use crowdsourcing as a tool to investigate. That, by far, I believe, would have been a better strategy. Who knows? If they had released a possible profile early on in this case, they may have been assisted with the public in locating the suspect. You may recall that Gabby Pito's body was found with the help of the public and the release of such information. My friend, there is literally an army of internet sleuths and true crime followers who can be a very vital part in any investigation. And they can, I believe me when I say this, they can be engaged without sacrificing the integrity of the investigation. While I admire the discipline in releasing things that should be held private in the investigation, I believe they have failed to utilize and develop help that could bring vital info forward. You see, there's someone somewhere who knows or could be led to know with the right information, person or people who may have done this horrible crime. So, let's talk about that. Who could have done this crime? What is a profile of a killer like this? We're going to talk about that in just a moment. But now it's time for what we call our Crazy Crook Story of the Week. We try to lighten the load a little bit with these heavy things we discuss. And our Crazy Crook this week, he did not rob a bank or an establishment, but he did rob precious time and resources. Get this, by simply being too drunk to realize where he is, or was. In a recent hilarious incident of intoxication, there was a man who decided to join a search party. Now get this, for someone who had been reported missing. But, wait for it, he didn't realize that he was a missing person in question. Now, luckily, everyone involved is safe, though that's far guaranteed in these types of ordeals. The guy was 50 years of age, Bayhan Mulu. He had been drinking with friends when he wandered into a nearby forest, and when he didn't come back after a long, long time, his friends grew concerned, reported him missing to authorities. And as news of the missing man spread, volunteers from different neighborhoods joined with authorities to aid in the rescue mission, and among them, our crazy guy Mulu, who appeared not to realize the subject of the search was himself. The search party reported continued for hours, rescuers calling out Mulu's name. However, it seems it took Mulu a while to realize and register a very important piece of information. But then eventually at one point, he announced his presence. And according to a news channel, the search party suddenly heard a voice speak up and ask, "Who are we looking for?" It was Mulu. "I am here," he said. So this drunk man, who realized that he was the one, he himself, they were searching for, that's so ridiculous, we put him in Charlie's Crazy Crooks Stories. That's our Crazy Crook. Now, it would be wishful thinking to think that the man responsible for these murders would speak up and say as Mulu did, and say, "Hey, I'm the one you're looking for." However, a recent story did occur of a newscaster early on in this case doing a report in the front of the murder house, where you could see, now get this, in the background, a white car, much like the one the police were looking for, go down the road. Now, this was before the bolo went out on that car. Could this have been the murderer returning to the scene of the crime to check out the investigation? Nothing official that was the very car, but many are commenting on it. So let's talk about who could be driving that car, if indeed that person might be the same one who murdered these young students. Again, we do not know that to be a fact. At this point, we just know the police are looking for the occupant or occupants of that vehicles. We do know that someone or some persons did this terrible murder. And we do know police have not released a profile of the suspect. At least not to the public, that is. There may or may not be a police profile released to investigators. Now, it would not be a hard stretch to think that maybe a profile has already been shared with investigators. We do know that the FBI are a part of this investigation. And it is the FBI's BAU, Behavior Analysis Unit, that would develop such a profile. And while police have not released such a profile, there are plenty of qualified, experienced homicide investigators, cold case investigators, who have commented on the profile. Now, these are not just mere internet sleuths, but real investigators. So, based on my own experience in law enforcement and upon their experience that is read widely at this point, I'm going to share with you about the profile that we might be looking for. But first, realize profiles by the best of investigators do not always get them right. A great example of a profile gone wrong was the D.C. sniper case way back in 2002. You see, the D.C. sniper attacks, also known as the Beltway sniper attacks, they were a series of coordinated shootings occurred during 3 weeks of October in 2002 throughout the Washington metropolitan area, which consists of the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia. 10 people were killed, 3 others critically wounded. And the snipers, well, John Allen Muhammad, 41 years of age, and Lee Boyd Mavo, age 17 at the time. They traveled in a blue 1990 Chevrolet Capri sedan. And that crime spree began in February 2002. Well, it included murders, robberies in several states. Again, resulted in 7 deaths, 7 injuries. In total, the snipers killed 17 people, wounded 10 others in a 10-month span. Well, that one concluded with them being caught, thank God. Muhammad was sentenced to death, and Malvo, the juvenile, sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences without parole. 2009, Muhammad, he was actually executed by lethal injection. The point I'm making is, though they really missed the profile. They profiled a single white male. These were 2 African-American men. And again, while some things may be right, some things in such profiles may be totally inaccurate. This is why profiles are simply a guide giving investigators an idea where to look. They are not manuals to be followed word for word. So in sharing any profile, it is to be considered as a possibility, not an absolute. Now, these profiles are developed in 3 areas, really, and they're mostly put together presenting a possible picture of a person or persons that's responsible for the crime. There is a crime scene profile, and you pick that up from examination and analysis of the scene itself. Then there is the suspect profile, and there are also profiles of victims that can help find a connection to the perpetrator. Now, the suspect profile is picked up from looking at the history of similar crimes where suspects have been caught or found. And with that in mind, I think you will find that most likely in this situation there was a male that did the act. Males are mostly responsible for this kind of killing. You know that this person had to be rather strong physically to do that kind of a crime. And this particular male would probably be around the ages, or anywhere from the age of 19 to 35. Again, this is the age area where most people of this type of offenders kill. So in looking at this type of crime, we most likely have a male. probably white, age 19 to 35. Now let's look at the crime scene. Well, the offender used a knife, a fixed knife. The offender could have military experience, maybe even ROTC, or perhaps he was a hunter. It was someone by far who had enough confidence to use such a knife close up for killing. Now, we all do know that this person is one who would have planned out or fantasized those murders. He knew he would kill with a knife. It had to be planned out to get in and out and remain unknown this long. It had to be planned. So at this point, we would tell people to look for a male aged 19 to 35. He may have even shown his knife to someone else prior to the crime, or even afterwards. He may have cuts on his arms and his body. People may have even witnessed him wearing camouflage or dark clothing with gloves on the night of the murder. He may have used a COVID mask when he normally did not wear one. Again, he may be wearing bandages to hide cuts or wounds. You see, in most crimes with this much stabbing and some defensive wounds, well, the offender would have cut himself, left his own blood at the crime scene. Hey, remember the cut on O.J. Simpson? Yeah, I know he was not found guilty, but also know the overwhelming evidence in the case. So look especially for someone who may be close to the area at that time, who had scratches or wounds, may have tried to hide them from you around the time of the murders. This person would probably, more than likely, be awkward in social interaction. He may have been rejected by one of the victims, or he may do what we call murder by proxy. You see, that is where someone else may have rejected him, but he takes out his rage on these victims. He sees these victims as victims of opportunity. Most likely he was rejected by a female, or maybe a sorority. Had disrespected him at one time, and he's taken his rage out on this sorority because, again, he sees these victims as opportunity to do so. You see, always look at what victims have in common, and certainly in this case, all victims were members of a sorority. This is what I believe the police may have meant when they said either the victims or the house was targeted. You see, if he was acting out his rage about a sorority and found those victims all living in the same house, this may have been what led him to target that house. Or maybe it was one or more of the victims that brought him there. One thing for sure, something triggered him for this attack. So now we have the public looking for a young male who has experience with a knife, who may have been rejected by a female or disrespected by a sorority, and may have even mentioned to others his distaste for women or sororities. He would have somehow had knowledge of the house. Perhaps he lives or lived in the area at one time. He may have visited the house at one time, or he may have even overheard someone who's been in the house tell him all about that house. He may be some person who's left the area at this time. Perhaps he told someone of a move he was making. He may have told someone prior to the murders that he was moving, or just right after. And while this is something that cannot be confirmed, or may not be so, it appears to me that this person is tied to that vehicle that they have not yet found. It is a real possibility that he has left the area. Perhaps this is the reason they were looking as far as Canada border for that vehicle. Now, if you know of such a person, please tell police about it. Do not approach them yourself. And remember, just because they may somehow fit such a profile, that does not really make them guilty. Let the police sort that out. It could be a false factor, but it is worth the police taking a look at it. You see, the police will do it professionally, and they'll do their best not to cause harm to the person if later they find out that while in one area they may fit such a profile, in other ways they are innocent of the crime. Don't worry, they will not arrest on this profile alone. They'll have to have probable cause before an arrest. You see, I personally believe that the motive for this murder, well, I believe it's what we call revenge rage. Because at some time this offender had been rejected or disrespected. Again, either by the victim or maybe someone the victims represent. They were all attractive young people enjoying their lives with frequent parties in their student housing home. Maybe it was this type of life that attracted the offender's rage. Now, we all have or had times when we may have wished revenge on someone who had disrespected us. However, my friend, this rage that this offender has is not a natural rage that many could understand. You see, while it's sometimes natural, about even normal people may want revenge, this revenge is not normal. It is not just hoping that a person gets fired or faces a loss. This revenge is wanting to kill someone, thinking you're doing the world and yourself a favor. It is total, uncontrolled rage. This person will definitely have life coping deficiencies. He has serious mental baggage, though he may not show it outwardly. His revenge turns into violent rage. He feels he's setting the record straight, getting revenge in a self-satisfying way. It is, in fact, sadly, bringing him pleasure to kill. My friend, I don't believe, in fact, I know you'll not find a Brian Laundrie type of suicide in this offender. He does not and cannot feel guilty for his deeds. He's already justified in his mind these murders. He may even feel he made the world better by showing these pretty people that life cannot be that fun. Again, he's getting pleasure in his killing. Now, the police were right to correct the first misstatement in letting the community know that they should be aware of their own surroundings. They should lock their doors. They should travel in groups. They should let people know when they get home. For this person, after a cooling down period, I believe will most likely kill again. Maybe not right away, maybe much later, and maybe in a place far away from this scene. But this person will eventually kill again, if not caught. Now, in spite of my opinion of how the police messed up using the public in their investigation and missed that opportunity, I do believe they're doing a lot of things right. And I do believe they will catch this killer. In fact, I believe our offender will be caught. And I do think that there's probably someone somewhere that will say something that will lead police to this murder. Maybe even a connection to the white car they're looking for. And I know that DNA can be used to find him and will be used to prosecute him. It does take longer, though, finding a profile through ancestry databases, but it has and can be done. Just like the Golden State Killer was found decades later. However, I believe this killer will not be found decades later, but if not soon, at least months later. I do not believe that this will become a cold case. Well, let's hope, at least on that basis, I'm right. Well, as always, if you know something, please go to the tip line. We'll leave the contact there in our show notes. And as always, I cannot go without urging you to keep you and your loved ones safe. Go the second mile in making sure you have good locks on your doors and your windows. Practice and teach to your loved ones situational awareness as you go about life. And take time to show your loved ones how special and how much they are loved. There are parents of 4 precious college students who'd give anything to have the opportunity that you and I have. That is to once again remind our loved ones of our love. Do not miss this chance to show your love to your kids, your parents, your grandparents, and other loved ones. Hey, make this Christmas something special with the ones you love. Put away petty jealousy and hurt feelings. Think how much these parents would love one more Christmas with their loved ones. You have that with your loved ones. So till this time next time, this is Charlie Crimebuster here, reminding you, stay safe, stay alert, for the life you save, yep, it may be your very own.